Doctors are going on strike again, and I think it's a big mistake. Not necessarily because you don't deserve more pay, you absolutely do, but every strike that you go on without a backup plan actually makes you more dependent on the system and not less. Now, I've been a doctor for over 10 years, and I've seen more strikes than any generation before. But there's a bigger problem here, and that problem is that power doesn't necessarily come from striking. It comes from having options. So in this video, I'm going to take you through whether or not strikes actually help you as an individual, as a doctor, and the exact steps that you can take to build options for yourself. These steps that helped me to become strike-proof and financially independent of the NHS and build a six-figure portfolio career whilst I was at it. Because if I'm being really honest with you, the doctors who are going to do really well over the next decade are the ones who have the clearest plan. So I'm going to give you one in this video. So let's dive in. The first thing that nobody tends to mention about strikes is why they worked historically. Now, during the Industrial Revolution, many years ago, they actually achieved real change, right? They got safer working hours, better pay, better recognition. Now, why it worked historically is because their work was irreplaceable. You know, if you were a miner, you couldn't just ship in 2,000 miners from another country. I mean, it would take weeks because people used to travel by boat. And secondly, they had a lot of public support because actually the system was really unbalanced. And so all they really had to withdraw was their labor. But with any system, there is always going to be a rebalance. Every system tries to reach equilibrium. And so where initially you had the owners of the factories and owners of the plants who had all the power and the workers try to take back that power, the system rebalanced itself. Now, when it comes to doctors, professionals who engage in strike action, what you are doing is you're saying that we are a unit of labor. Now, when that happens, the reaction to that, or the equilibrium rebalancing system thing, is that the system tries to work without you, without that unit of labor. We've seen it in the past where you have equipment that replaces workers so that a company is no longer being held to ransom by its workers. Now, we see this within the NHS system where the government obviously are now trying to rebalance things by replacing labor, right? And then even if they do increase your salary, great. Now it means that you're still dependent on that salary. You're still required to be where the rota says you're supposed to be, and it never really addresses the real problem, which, if we're being honest, isn't always pay. It's more working conditions, it's more burnout, it's more being understaffed, it's more not having enough training numbers. If I'm being honest, back in 2016, during the strikes, I didn't really feel underpaid. I didn't even really feel overworked because I didn't know any different. I just finished university and I was working. And yes, we worked 12 days straight and we had long shifts, but I didn't really know any different. But I did think, oh, you know, they're trying to take away banding. At the time, they're taking away banding, and I thought, oh, that doesn't sound fair. And so I joined the strikes. Now, back in 2016, I thought I had only two bad options. One, which was to stay in medicine and strike and not be very happy, or two, was to leave and go and do something else, which I didn't want to do at the time. And so I created a third option, which you can create too. And that third option was a portfolio career, which incorporated doing things that I enjoy, creating impact, earning money whilst I was doing it, and also investing that money into different asset classes. Okay, so here's why I think that striking is not necessarily beneficial for doctors. Because when you strike, it just signals that you are depending on a system that, quite frankly, doesn't really care about you. And I know that it probably should, but think about it from a government perspective. They only have three main things that they're concerned about. The costs. Can we afford to pay doctors? What do the public think? Will this affect our votes? And thirdly, do we really have to do this? And so they're not really thinking about doctors as individuals. The second thing is, if you are relying on a system that has already shown you that it doesn't care about you, striking isn't going to make them care. When I started striking and I saw the negotiations going on with the government, it hit me like, hang on a second, we don't have any power here. Me as an individual, I don't have any power. Yes, I've been to medical school, but what about me is any different from anybody else? And why exactly would the government give in to us? If you think about it in terms of the bigger picture, and as you as an individual, the question you've got to ask yourself is, in what world does the system become perfect? It never does, but you can create an ideal scenario for yourself. Now, the thing that you can do to make yourself strike-proof is to, one, identify what it is that you want to gain from your career. Two, you want to be financially literate and use your money to the maximum. I think this probably is a game changer for me because, not everyone's going to build a portfolio career, but what you do want to do is let your money at the very least work for you. So what it gave me was options. So I started with financial literacy. You want to be investing your money so it's working for you and it's compounding over the years. You want to be tax literate and you want to know whether or not you should be investing in a pension or not. These are just the basic things that you can do. So this allows me to be able to say no to opportunities that I don't want to take. It has allowed me, when I've needed breaks, to take breaks and not feel like financially I have to go to work. And it just gave me a different level of freedom that I didn't feel when I was striking back in 2016. Now, if you're familiar with any of my videos, there are 4 ways that most doctors can increase their income. There are 4 levers to income. The first is career progression. The second is capital investments, which I'm talking about here. The third is skills monetization, and the fourth is business development. Now, today we are talking about capital investments and career progression, which are 2 of kind of the slower journeys towards wealth, but they get you there eventually. Now, when it comes to career progression, ultimately, you want to be able to put yourself in a position where you have options. And that's the difference between the industrial times to now. Back in the industrial times, you couldn't replace labor. Now, you've got AI coming in, you've got other groups of healthcare professionals, which they are trying to subvert and undermine doctors, depending on which way you look at it. And then also, the public sentiment isn't really there. Now, it isn't really there because we're in a high cost of living situation. There doesn't seem to be money anywhere. And so when you look at those factors, it isn't really the same. So the question you need to ask yourself is what works for you and what makes conditions conducive for you to work in. So strikes can achieve pay increases. You do get temporary kind of visibility for the problems that are within the NHS. You might even get some contract improvements, but they're never going to give you freedom, okay? That you are always going to be dependent on the NHS, even if they increase your salary. It's never going to give you control over your time. It's never going to protect you from burnout. And it doesn't make you financially resilient. And so to me, it can make you stuck in a cycle of, okay, let's strike and then we get higher pay, but then that causes budget pressures elsewhere. It means the staffing actually contracts and there's less staff. And then it can actually lead to worse conditions, which leads to more burnout, which leads to more strikes, which the system may not be able to bend to. Now, for me, those conditions were 1, having the option to leave if I wanted to, being financially stable enough to do that, and 3, doing things that I enjoy. And that is what I've done by building a portfolio career. I now get to travel when I want to. I'm able to work with the BMJ and make a global impact. And I really enjoy sports and work with Fulham Football Club as a result of that. So I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for the strikes because it opened my eyes and understanding to what was important to me and the changes that I need to make. And over the past 10 years, I've done just that. Right, so now just quick interruption. If you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, actually, she's right. I do need to start building options. And I don't know where to begin. Well, I've put together a free guide. It's called the Doctor's Financial First Steps, and it covers how to build an emergency fund, tax planning, and your first investment principles. The link is in the description. You can grab that. Like I said, it's absolutely free. Right, back to this. Why do most of us feel stuck? Why do most of us get trapped in this cycle of, actually, we should strike and then we should get more pay and then everything will be better? Well, if the NHS is a monopoly, and that means that they're the dominant buyer of labor. It means they are in control. They are the big boss. They decide that there's just one buyer of our services or our labor. There's only the NHS. If you're in the UK, you have to train within the NHS, okay? And so what that means is you can't negotiate individually. Your pay is set and that is it. And your only option is to strike with everyone else or to leave. Well, those were my options, or what felt like my options in 2016. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying you shouldn't strike or you should strike. That is completely up to you. But there is a limitations to the problems that strikes can solve, okay? If we look at the facts, we've been striking for the past 10 years, and has it really changed that much? Yes, it has increased our pay, but think about yourself as an individual. Has it helped you as an individual? And if they decide next year that actually they're not going to listen to you, what are your options? To me, waiting for like a systemic change can be a bit dangerous if you don't have a plan for yourself. Because the truth of the matter is, individually, we don't really have that much bargaining power, but this is how you get bargaining power, and this is what I've done. And step one, I started to build a portfolio career. So I diversified how I worked. I continued my clinical work, but I did it on my terms. I looked at the skills that I had and I doubled down on them. I basically stopped putting 100% of my security in just one employer and one salary, right? And so the key thing for you, if you're watching this, if you have nowhere to start, is to start with financial literacy. That is I hope that's a key takeaway message for you. Now, the government's questions, like I said, are nothing to do with what is valuable to doctors. It's can we manage without meeting these demands? And you've got to be realistic. So systemic change is very important, but it's not going to do that much individually, if you ask me. So what should you do instead? Well, what I really want you to take away from this is that you don't have to choose between supporting colleagues and protecting yourself. We can do both at the same time. We can advocate for like better conditions or better pay and be financially literate. We can strike for better work conditions and develop portfolio careers. We can fight for the NHS and create our own security. But what we shouldn't do is wait for the system to give us that permission, because it's never going to do that, is it? So first thing, start with money, build your emergency fund, learn about finances, learn about tax optimization, diversify your income. Secondly, build leverage, develop your skills so that you do have the option to walk away if you need to. And do not wait to the next strike to get yourself a pay rise. In my opinion, you can do it yourself. Only we can give ourselves the freedom that I know we all really crave. Now, if this resonates with you and you're serious about building financial stability, regardless of what the system decides, regardless of if the strikes work or not, I've got something that is going to help you immensely. Okay, it's a 5-week course that covers all of these basics. It's tailored especially for doctors to give you this exact roadmap that I use to escape dependency. It gives you emergency fund strategies, tax optimization, and investing basics that work for most portfolio careers and doctors. So you can sign up for the wait list. The link is down below, and I'll see you on it.